We're going to start our college algebra class by looking at a preliminary section here on what we call the Cartesian plane. Whether you've heard it by that name or not, I'm sure you're familiar with it. This is your typical XY plane that you see here with the standard negative 10 to 10 axis drawn in this particular version. It's actually named after René Descartes, a famous philosopher and mathematician who came up with the idea of using this rectangular coordinate system. So we'll talk in this section about the distance formula, midpoint formula, circles, as well as just the basic idea of how to plot points, which is pretty simple but is fundamental as we move through this class and we want to graph functions. So the first thing, if you look at the plane that we have, we always draw our horizontal and vertical axis. It's conventional to use the letters x and y, although we could use any letters, and if x is your input, whatever your input variable is, we put on the horizontal axis, and on the vertical axis we put our y variable, or our output. Some terminology here. We don't talk about the quadrants a whole lot in algebra, but when you move to pre-calculus and other classes, a lot of times it's important to be able to tell which quadrant you're in. When the axis cross, they cut the plane into 4 pieces, and we start where everything's positive and call that quadrant 1, and then go around counterclockwise. So we have quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4 if we want to refer to the location in the plane. Another term you do see quite a bit is the origin, the point 0, 0. Another name for that is the origin. Okay. So we plot points. They call it often the rectangular coordinates because if you think about how we do this, you're creating a rectangle with the axis. We don't explicitly draw those other sides of it when we do it, but that's what we're really doing here. So if we have an x coordinate, we'd go over to that x coordinate and we would drop down to the y coordinate. And so my x and y distances forms a rectangle with the x and y axis. So my first example, just going to plot a few points. I think I'm going to switch over and do that in GeoGebra just because it's a nice, easy way to do it here on the computer. GeoGebra is a really nice software I'm going to use a lot in these videos and in this class. It's absolutely free. You can go to GeoGebra.com as well as I usually go to GeoGebra.org, and you can run it off of the web or you can download it. There's lots of different versions. I usually use what's called GeoGebra Classic, which looks like this. You have an input window and then the graphing view, and there's lots of other views you can turn on and tons of things this thing can do, but I can plot points. I could just plot points on GeoGebra by typing the coordinates as an ordered pair 3, 4, and it'll plot the point for me and label it there. But if you look at that, if I was going to plot the point 3, 4, I would go 1, 2, 3 in the x direction and positive 4 in the y direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we would get that point. Okay? Let me try to use the point tool up here to do the next one. So if I want to do negative 3, 4, I would go back 1, 2, 3, negative x direction by 3, and then up 1, 2, 3, 4 in the positive y direction, and there would be my point B. You can see I didn't get the exact coordinates. I could fix that over here. So in GeoGebra, I can either type the coordinates or plot the points. It's hard to get them exactly on the grid if you plot them, but you'd see it was close enough to the naked eye there. I guess I'll just type the others in. We've got negative 3, negative 2. I'll show you I would go back 3 and down 2, and it should be right there at that intersection. Negative 3, negative 2, negative in both directions. So negative 3, negative 2. And then 0, 3, that's actually going to be on the y-axis. We'd move 0 in the x direction, up 3 in the y direction, we'd get that point. So 0, 3 gives us a point on the axis. So that's how we plot points. Again, nothing complicated there about it, but extremely important. If we're going to plot functions later, we start by plotting points.